Okay, let's dive right into this fascinating explainer by unpacking an absolutely breathtaking what-if scenario. I mean, what if human consciousness is actually an ecosystem, and just like animals and plants, ideas and thoughts can literally go extinct? Today, we're exploring the brilliant source material, the Apiary of Extinct Thoughts. It's this profound, kind of wild look into the fragility, the ecology, and the terrifying potential weaponization of human consciousness. We kick off our journey with this really eerie journal entry. Our protagonist, Mira, inherits her grandmother's remote property, right? And she discovers something utterly impossible hanging in a dead oak tree. Her grandmother's notes lay out this unbelievable premise: ideas never truly die. When a specific way of thinking completely vanishes from humanity, the universe has a highly specific, physical immune response to save it. Imagine if every thought you ever forgot was physically buzzing around somewhere out there. So let's move right into Section 1, the ecology of lost ideas, and figure out how exactly these thoughts are preserved. Enter the conceptual bees. Now, you have to understand, these are definitely not your normal backyard insects. These bees are literal scavengers of our collective unconscious. They harvest the nectar of extinct consciousness and somehow transform it into this thick, opalescent liquid that they store in these impossible hives. And here's the kicker. By tasting this liquid, a person can briefly, vividly experience a completely dead thought exactly as it was originally felt by the person who had it. And the sheer scale of this harvest is just staggering. We are talking about Sumerian twilight grief, pre-heroic collective courage, and Alexandrian mathematical intuition. Just imagine for a second, feeling the precise, pre-linguistic maternal love of a Neanderthal mother. It absolutely proves that humanity's mental boundaries used to be far, far wider than the incredibly narrow ways we tend to think today. Which brings us to Section 2, commodifying extinct consciousness. Because, let's be real, human nature is incredibly predictable. Whenever humanity discovers something sacred and magical, the market is right there to slap a price tag on it. And that brings us to this staggering number, $50,000. That is the market rate being offered by a tech billionaire named Julian Pierce for just one single vial of fully documented extinct human consciousness. He basically wants to experience these ancient emotions like a high-end drug, just collecting dead ways of being human. Now, Mira is drowning in property taxes. She simply can't afford to maintain her grandmother's estate, so she actually starts selling these vials. But here is where preservation meets capitalism, right? Mira is forced to grapple with this agonizing reality that selling these vials to pay her bills might literally be the very first step in destroying the wonder she's desperately trying to protect. And that tension leads us straight into Section 3, the weaponization of thought, taking us from the quiet horror of commodification into the terrifying realm of corporate control. Because if you can preserve a dead thought, someone will inevitably ask if you can kill a living one. We're looking at a stark clash of ideologies here. On one side, we have Mira's quiet goal of sacred preservation, just safeguarding the vast diversity of lost history. On the other, we have this massive corporate entity called Nemesis Solutions. They want to weaponize the bees. They practice what they call conceptual engineering, seeking to breed these insects to deliberately target, murder, and curate the living thoughts inside human minds. Nemesis literally wants to assassinate core human concepts for their corporate clients. For a cool $50 million, they want to eliminate climate anxiety and environmental guilt for petroleum companies. They want to erase the reflexive privacy instinct for social media platforms and decrease the medical autonomy instinct for pharmaceutical conglomerates. Think about that. Someone tweaking your brain so you no longer even care about your own online privacy. It's reputation management executed at the actual neurological level. Pushed absolutely to the edge, Mira enters Section 4, the Global Keeper Network, where she discovers she isn't actually alone. The tension just escalates dramatically over 48 hours. Nemesis issues a brutal ultimatum to comply. By midnight, Mira gets doxxed on an academic forum. By 3 a.m., literal intruders raid her property. It is a ticking clock toward 0 hour at noon, which is the exact moment Nemesis is planning to initiate a localized, weaponized extinction pulse to forcibly erase environmental guilt from everyone in a 50-mile radius. With time totally running out, she reaches out to this hidden network spanning the globe. In California, Amelia Cross guards parasitic or murdered thoughts. Up in the Cascades, Thomas Webb protects frozen Ice Age concepts. Down in Louisiana, Simone Archambault guards colonized and anti-ownership philosophies. And over in Japan, Yuki Sato protects the traumatized consciousness of atomic annihilation. Every single keeper guards incredibly dangerous, highly specialized fragments of lost human history. So the keepers are faced with impossible choices: join the corporations and become weapons, refuse and be totally destroyed, or merge their own minds completely with the bees and lose their humanity entirely. But as one keeper's bees literally write out in sting welts upon her skin, the fourth choice is always fire. They realize fire doesn't just destroy, it transforms. There's a radical, unthinkable fourth option on the table. Which brings us to the absolute climax of our explainer, Section 5, the cognitive apocalypse. With the corporate weapon literally powering up on Mira's lawn, the keepers decide to fight this weaponization of thought by breaking the entire system wide open. Instead of letting corporations create a curated cognitive monoculture, they coordinate globally. The keepers frantically pool 50,000 years of preserved thoughts. The conceptual bees swarm to form this massive physical protective barrier against the nemesis extinction weapon. And right behind that shield, the keepers simultaneously detonate every single vial of extinct consciousness across the entire globe. The result is immediate. It's a mental flash flood. The release completely shatters the rigid modern monoculture of the mind, overwhelming the modern brain with ancient, dead, and traumatized ideas that are just demanding to be thought once again. Imagine suddenly waking up and thinking in a dead Proto-Indo-European language, or violently experiencing Bronze Age loyalties out of nowhere. By flooding the world with dead ideas, they create a cognitive environment so incredibly diverse that it can simply no longer be controlled or targeted by corporate weapons. So, what happens next? Let's look at the fallout in Section 6, a new mental topology. Well, of course, institutions like the CDC scramble to clinicalize what is essentially a magical evolutionary event, slapping the label acute conceptual plurality syndrome on it. People everywhere are experiencing multiple extinct thought forms all at the exact same time. Humanity's operating system has basically been forcefully updated, and the mind is just scrambling to process this massive cognitive load, leading to either rapid integration or, in some cases, personality fragmentation. The aftermath is definitely a mixed bag. Tragically, about 20% of people experience personality fragmentation under the sheer weight of these ancient, sometimes heavily traumatized ideas. But incredibly, a combined 80% successfully integrate the thoughts into their existing minds, or, even crazier, spontaneously form entirely new, ancient-styled tribal communities based around these resurrected concepts. The core takeaway here is just profound. Researchers realize the death rate is surprisingly low because consciousness is an ecology. It acts as a self-regulating ecosystem. When one extinct thought starts to overwhelm a host, another entirely different ancient concept naturally emerges to provide balance and perspective. It turns out, human consciousness is far more robust and healthy when it's allowed to be a diverse, wild ecosystem rather than a neatly manicured, corporate-controlled monoculture. As the bees finally come to rest, their 50,000-year mission complete, we are left with a really provocative question. Mira chose to save human consciousness from ultimate control by setting our darkest, extinct thoughts completely free, by unleashing absolute cognitive chaos. Would you have done the same? I really hope this deep dive into the apiary of extinct thoughts leaves you eager to explore the wild, untamed ecology of your own mind. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep asking those big questions.